Well, welcome to Landscape Live. It's quite nerve-wracking, I can tell you. Trying to keep an eye on everything, my notes, the computer screen above, and anything else. But anyway, it's only a test session, and I've no idea really if anyone is even watching. One has some ideas about how many people can be in a group, but frankly, from what I've seen, the numbers of people in a group versus those who are actually browsing at any one time are few and far between. So really this session is just about testing out what it's like to run a live session. And I must tell you, the instant I turned that camera on, I felt like a different animal, like dazed, dazzled in the floodlights of the public media, social media. One of the things I've been wondering about here is whether I should be looking at the camera screen at all, or whether it's really just going to be an audio session, which is what I have tentatively called Landscape Radio. But this session is Landscape Live, and later on, we're going to be doing some interviews, but as unnerving as it is here, I think that we will probably stick to audio-only sessions because there are just too many things to look at, too many screens. But welcome if you've just joined on here. I don't see any likes or anything like that happening yet, so that sort of takes some of the pressure off me. We will be going until 10:15, and I'm presuming that this will be available afterwards. As I say, it's a test session. All of the technology, all of the ideas, they're purely my own. I don't have a big team here behind me, which I wish I did. So I'm guessing that you will be able to watch this afterwards. And really the idea is not so that you can sit and stare at my face, but that you can just listen to what has been the standard format of this Facebook group, which is that it's Facebook. And Facebook, of course, for the older generation, is a completely new phenomenon. Okay, it's not that new, I think. A lot of us joined soon after it came out, and I think it was about 2005. So we've been going on Facebook for about 15 years or something like that. But the advances in phones and things, Wi-Fi and unlimited accounts, unlimited data and all of those kind of things, has completely changed the way the world is. So I think what I'm going to do now is, because I want to look at my text, and well, I don't know. You can give me the feedback. I can't look you in the eye, look you in my camera eye while I'm looking at notes. But everyone's been banished from the house, including my daughter, who shares this little room with me. And it'll just give you some background about who I am. I suppose that might be more meaningful, because that would be one of the dimensions that's really missing in Facebook. And I think Facebook, I wasn't actually planning on talking about Facebook. I've got a list of notes here. My computer screen's gone off. Let me just check that. There's a very big gap in social media, and that is the social presence. And I think this is a significant problem in social media, is that it is unreal. It is virtual. So, I see I've got one person watching me. Why don't you say who it is? Because I actually can't tell. I'd be curious to know, but thank you. Thank you for joining me. I have a few faithfuls on the Facebook group, so I'm not going to say who I think it could be. Somebody in the UK said that they were interested, so maybe they're watching. And now you get to see the unvarnished truth. I was talking about Facebook and the lack of the social presence in social media, and it's one of the things that one of the aims that I have in Landscape Heritage SA is to provide factual, truthful content. I have found, since I started this group nearly 2 years ago during lockdown, I think I started in March 2020, and we've come a long way since then. We are, just to give you some stats, we just crossed the 2,000 members number on around New Year's Day when one of our posts went viral. It's the first time I've had a viral post, and I didn't write it, but like all of the posts on the group, they are actually curated. That is, I have to confess, my name is Bruce Eitson. I'm a landscape architect, and I'm a Facebook addict. And I have been, I don't think I've ever been off Facebook for more than 24 hours. And the reason that is I think it started out in the early days when, if you're a member of a diaspora, you'd need a diasporan or a diasporan for the diaspora. And the diaspora that I belong to is the Zimbabwean diaspora. And it's a very big diaspora in Cape Town and in South Africa. I think there are almost as many Zimbabweans living in South Africa as there are in Zimbabwe. Anyway, yes, I'm a Zimbabwean, and but I'm born of South African parents who immigrated to Southern Rhodesia, as it was all those years ago. No, I'm not a Wenwe Rhodesian. I don't believe in that. But that's why you find a high number of posts on South Africa and Zimbabwe in particular, because these are the areas where I have lived and practiced. In fact, I've lived more than half my life, and nearly my entire adult life in South Africa. So Facebook, in order to curate and collate the site, I'm just looking at the time there, is I gather the posts by following many groups, and because my friends are mostly so boring and never post anything, sorry, but quite a lot of them are in this group, because I started off with about 50 of my friends, Facebook friends. No, they're real friends, not just Facebook. I don't have Facebook friends. They formed the base of the group when I started out with this group. Excuse me if I have a drink now. I followed increasing numbers of cultural groups around the region and found huge amounts of disinformation, racism, unbelievably skewed information, and a lot of, frankly, the word that I'm looking for is extremism, because for the last 2 years I've come to try to develop a view of what is it that we see in the Facebook environment, or it's not, it is, for me, it's a Facebook environment, because I don't really go anywhere else on social media. It's just the limit to the number of social media platforms you can go on. And for me, Facebook is the most engaging. Twittering away is something that never appealed to me. Instagram is pretty much a visual platform. I would, if I had the time, if I had like 2 lives, I would do Instagram, because I have tens of thousands of photographs which I could post there, but so does everybody else. So it is Facebook. I read my news on Facebook, and I have curated my own sort of view of the world based on liking the things that I like, which is all to do with the landscape. And it can be botanical, it can be pure landscape, the scenic landscape, the cultural landscape. And it's in the cultural landscape that I think the most propaganda and disinformation an outright racist extremism occurs. And I'm going to be quite blunt about it because I think that people... Sorry, let me turn my computer down. Because people are hugely influenced by the social media. And the social media as an animal... I'm not a journalist, by the way. I am a landscape architect, and I've only got 4 minutes to go, so I might run on here while I'm just on the subject. And yeah, I don't have anyone watching right now, so I'm just hoping that you will pick up on this session later. But I do find that it's very disturbing what goes on social media. And people are hugely influenced by it. And I think that nowhere has that been more apparent than in the whole anti-vax campaign, not to mention all of the shenanigans that went on in the United States in the previous presidency. So yeah, now I'm getting political. And one of the problems that I had when I first started this group was that there were a lot more people on Facebook. And people really attacked me if I said stuff, and I just threw them out because it's actually quite shocking running a public group. I'm a little more immune to it now. I've had a bit of a what do they call it? Baptism by fire experience trying to run a public group, especially in a place like Cape Town, which is a highly contested city. But I've learned what the pitfalls are, and but I also think that there are certain subjects which have been pushed out of the public domain or which are dominated by ruling views that also take over academia and present a very skewed nationalistic type of view of the world. And so you will find that I am not supporting, as I said the other day, Landscape Heritage SA is not here to support any particular political view. It's obviously probably quite personal and rather sort of one-sided because so far it's just me doing it. But there definitely is a tendency in Southern African societies, and I say that as a South African and as a Zimbabwean and former Rhodesian, for political views to dominate society, and they create a very skewed view of the world. Anyway, so I'm going to carry on. I think I've said enough on that. I have various ideas, having done this for 2 years now, and I guess it's not that difficult talking on these mobile phones on live sessions, because due to the pandemic, we started doing it as professionals, had to attend official meetings and other public gatherings were all done online. So thankfully, we do live in an age where we have the ability to communicate. What do you do when you want to scratch your nose on public media? Sorry, I have to do that. That's why I think the radio would be more discreet. So yes, the technology is there. It's really phenomenal for us, because what it means is that we as individuals have the ability to broadcast live to potentially large numbers of people. Now, at the moment, I've had sort of one person going on and off, just probably more out of curiosity than anything else. Maybe they saw what I looked like and they decided they definitely don't want to look at that. And I'm going to have a sip of my tea now. So social media is very powerful. It's like, that's why I call this landscape radio, because I do have that idea in mind that we can actually talk about it. We live in a different world today than we did even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. Certainly, technology takes time to catch up. And we here in South Africa, where I live, probably people are at various stages of sort of connectivity. So maybe more, I think a lot of people are watching live. I mean, I've watched some interesting stuff live. And it's basically radio. There are, professional studios you can see, which is great. And they've got professional DJs or hosts or whatever you want to call them. So I'm doing something different here. I'm a professional person. I'm a professional landscape architect. I've practiced for over 30 years in the region. I do a variety of planning. I do landscape architectural design, and I also do environmental planning, and I've specialized in visual planning and landscape heritage planning. So there's a different kind of background here that you would not get in terms of a radio host. This is actually about a professional person trying to popularize the profession. But I'm not trying to popularize the profession of landscape architecture or heritage. I'm not sure how popular these professions actually are. But what I'm trying to popularize and amplify is the appreciation of landscape heritage. And so yes, I have limited ability, but I do believe that if you just start something, it will grow. So 2 years ago, I had this idea of having a landscape heritage group, and over the course of 2020, that grew. I made a Facebook group. By the end of the year, I can't remember what the statistics were. I think we had under 1,000 members. It grows steadily at about 7% a month. Now I've gone over my time now, but that's fine. I'm going to give myself half an hour till 10:30, and I really should turn my camera off because I'm dying to munch away. But I guess when you're talking, a radio host or whatever, a landscape host, you can't do that. So I've got two biscuits on my coffee plate down there, and a new cup of coffee over there, which I imagined I'd be eating and drinking from, but it's not that possible. Well, let me just zip on to the next thing. Yeah, so we're growing. This is a test session. I'm just really going to freewheel my way through this. I've had a few notes. And I'm still going to do it because I'm just going to see how it goes. And so far, I'm quite comfortable about it. It's sort of working well for me. It's not exactly millions of people watching, but I'm not a famous personality. I'm a rather obscure personality. And I definitely need a Photoshop makeover or something. So maybe I'm just going to put a cartoon character up here in future. What I have planned, I'm still on holiday, by the way, and the pulse of tidiness has flatlined during the holiday. So there's only a small little zone of tidiness here behind me, which I achieved by throwing everything off the tables that was within camera range. But to right and left, it's not a pretty sight. So 2022 beckons. Hopefully, well, we're 2 years into the pandemic, and as I said, that was the background to starting this group, Landscape Heritage SA. Landscape Heritage SA has actually got a lot of work besides going, because I'm behind the scenes, which I don't think most people on Facebook participate in. I think, and I could be wrong, a lot of people are just there for the pretty pictures. And in actual fact, I see the statistics I don't know if you can really see them, but as an admin, I can see how many people have reached, a post has reached, how many people were live out of the group as opposed to were dead out of the group, I suppose, dead to the group. And I think for any one post, and we had that viral post, which was actually on King Sekhukhune of the Lesotho, the Mountain Kingdom. And yeah, I have, talking about posts, I have a bit of a soft spot for, I've developed a soft spot for the Sotho Swana people. And we've actually got hundreds of, believe it or not, we've got hundreds of Sotho Swana members. And not one of them cared to translate or saw the post that had been incorrectly translated by Google. So that's something I think we're going to get to that right now. But please, I haven't seen any comments, not even one like. I mean, I'm crying here. Not even one hate. Some kind of feedback would be better than no feedback. But from what I've seen on my group is probably because I'm kind of a headmaster type figure. If you misbehave, you're out. So most people, they don't say anything. They just timidly like the posts. But I have a few brave souls who actually do comment. So let's get onto the post, because this is kind of my format. So I'm looking up at my screen now. Forgive me for not looking at you. I hope my screen doesn't freak out. I put up. It's a bit of an unusual post for landscape heritage. You'd think landscape heritage, it's not a mountain, it's not a river. There's a picture here, it says Likhomo Basotho. Now, I think a lot of European South Africans or European Africans probably have no clue what that means. They will recognize the word Basotho, perhaps, if they're remotely interested in culture, in which, frankly, lots of people, the only culture they're interested in is rugby and braaiing, and I'm being rude, and gardening. It's another popular thing of culture, and going to the movies, and, what is culture? So not everyone, I realize, is as interested in anything but their own personal culture. Excuse me. But culture is actually the very tricky thing to handle when it comes to heritage. Heritage is a professional planning discipline. Like landscape architecture, it's a fairly cultivated taste. There are not a lot of heritage planners. I think it's a highly contentious field. I'm not going to say any more about heritage planning right now, because steam is beginning to come out of my ears just thinking about heritage planning. But heritage planning is something that actually goes on. I think most people don't have a clue about planning. Planning is a professional discipline, and we just don't throw up buildings, although it does seem that we do, throw up buildings and highways and dams without actually planning them. So if you're in the milieu of planning, if you might know a town planner or an architect or an engineer or a landscape architect, you might know that there's something, definitely people on this group have probably heard of environmental planning or environmental impact assessment. There's a very contentious one at the moment, but I'm really rambling on. Okay, so I think I can handle the landscape radio thing, if you don't mind lots of diversions along the way. I'm looking, and it might help you to look at your own Facebook screen and go to the Landscape Heritage group at that picture of these very colorful young men. Oh, well, no, so it's not a very gender-friendly picture, is it? Nowadays there are so many issues which are pitfalls. But anyway, it's a group of 4 men, and they are wearing some very amazing outfits. To me, they look amazing. I personally have never been to Lesotho. I've been to a lot of places in southern Africa, but Lesotho is not one of them. And the Free State is another bit of black hole in my geography. It's been one of those provinces you drive through. Sorry about that. And so it said Likhomo Basotho, which means something to do with the Basotho. And this was translated by Facebook, bless their heart, as the cows of the blacks. Well, I have read enough about Sotho translations to know that Sotho actually means brown or black or dark. Or I don't think it's a very precise determination. But I'm not looking at a picture of some cows here. I'm looking at a picture of some men with these very traditional blankets. Well, whether they're traditional or not, I don't know. Some of them look like they could be traditional, but they're very colorful. And we love colorful things in this house, although, my personal color is fading. I saw the guy's pink shoes. My daughter loves pink. He's got a pink hat, a pink shirt and pink shoes. And I think, what is going on here? And they've got their sticks. So this, to me, looked like, I thought they're very jazzed up shepherds, but or wise men. If I think of a nativity scene, I realize I have a rather naughty sense of humor. But it turns out, and I thank Paula Hartzenberg, who's one of our regular admirers in our group. Sorry, I'm just trying to navigate this post up here. I saw I was waiting for her to comment because she often puts translations for us when it comes from Lesotho, and I have a smattering of Shona myself and a few other words, but I certainly don't know South African languages, or I'm trying to learn Xhosa. I've been learning the clicks. And she says Dikgomo. I don't know how clicked Sotho or Sesotho, which is the southern Sotho, is, but Dikgomo, and I would actually like, if you're listening, or at some point if you listen, Paula, for you to come and do an interview with us, because I think that would be very interesting. Because really, it's all about people. This is what Facebook is. There's lots of people, but you do have to be careful whose posts you read, because there's a lot of propaganda nonsense out there. But she says Dikgomo in the first place means cattle. And the Sotho, like most Southern African people, are a cattle culture. In fact, just about everyone who lives in Southern Africa belongs to a cattle culture, certainly at the agricultural level. And we have something called the central cattle pattern. I'm not sure. I think the Sotho do fall in that. I haven't paid too much attention to what's happening with the Sotho in terms of archaeology. But cattle was the central feature of the many Southern African economies. And because it was their 1028, their price, their currency. So having cattle, you didn't necessarily kill them, not too often. It wasn't just a commodity. And she says, but Dikgomo also means precious belongings, which you can imagine. That's kind of like gold to Europeans or the Chinese. I think the Chinese love gold more than anyone else. And I hope the ambassador doesn't turn up and complain. So Dikgomo Basotho means the precious belongings of the Basotho. But there's no cattle in this picture here. In this instance, the colorful blankets of the Basotho most definitely are. Red blankets or other bright colors, are worn by important people in the community. So there you have it. These four dudes, as I might say today, are sharp. They are significant people, and you might not think of them as being significant when you driving through the country at 120 to 150 kilometers per hour, depending on how law-abiding you are. And although I don't think you can whiz around Lesotho at those kind of speeds. So just bear that in mind. When we drive around, there's some things we take for granted in the landscape. Like we take trees for granted. We take mountains for granted. We just think they'll always be there. And we take people for granted. But I suppose, like, if you didn't study botany, if you didn't study landscaping, if you didn't study water, you might think that trees are just always going to be there. Water is just always going to be there. Clean water is just always going to be there. But in actual fact, the landscape is not something we can take for granted. And we have to understand what goes on in the landscape. So people are fundamental to the landscape. In fact, there would be no landscape heritage if there were no people, because it would just be a natural landscape. And because that's a big subject in itself, how natural are people? Some people are clearly more natural than others. But a natural landscape is the way nature made it, whereas a cultural landscape is one that's been significantly impacted by human behavior. So Lesotho, basically all landscapes are cultural landscapes. Some people say it's very debatable, because you could just as well say all landscapes are natural landscapes, because mankind is part of the natural landscape. So just because one species has set about to change the world rather dramatically, it doesn't mean it's not natural. Maybe we should get a philosopher to come on board and discuss that with us. What is a natural landscape and what is a cultural landscape? But anyway, so these are rural landscapes, agricultural. There are a few words that with that ending: agricultural, horticultural, silvicultural, probably a few others. I've got lists and lists of them, but I wasn't planning on talking about it today or twittering on for half an hour. I could easily go on for another hour. But I'm going to wrap it up there. I did one post, quite a lot of background about myself, and I'll probably be repeating it because I certainly won't be able to remember it, and I don't have an hour's spare time to sit and look at myself again. I'm going to try, I don't know if technically if it's possible, I've created a YouTube channel because I want to put our videos on YouTube. That's another thing. It's another area of social media which I think is very, very profitable, quite literally. And so there is a monetary aspect to going on social media. You certainly get nothing out of Facebook, I can tell you that so far. And I'm going to have a little gripe here. Not one person has joined Landscape Heritage SA, even though it costs $1. I'm quite disappointed about that. But I'm hoping over time we're just going to persevere to put these videos over onto YouTube. And so suddenly I'm really exposing myself to more than just a closed group, because that's actually going to become an internet. Well, this is already an international group. We have got members all around the world and all over Africa. We have a lot of African members, which is quite gratifying, really, because this group is about Africa. So far, it's about sub-Saharan, or actually sub-equatorial Africa. So I'm going to try, technically, do Facebook and YouTube speak to each other? Probably not. So might have to download this video and upload it to YouTube, but you can also like and follow, except there's no text at the bottom, us on YouTube. And so this is our first official live session, and thank you for watching.